Welcome everyone to our monthly event organized by Women Power Up Network. And this month we are discussing a very interesting topic, uh, women in project management. Myself, Priya Patra, and I am the lead of Women Power Up Network. And we have our entire team on the event today. My co-host and also the presenter for the day today is Cecilia, a Latin American lead. Cecilia, want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today, and I hope you enjoy this session.
Thank you, Cecilia. We are missing Grace today. She is unwell and she's not able to join. She is our Africa region lead. We also have Mariana, who is our Europe lead. And Mariana, over to you to say hi and welcome everyone.
Hi, greetings from Europe, Slovenia. I hope you will have a chance to visit our country someday. And this event today is very important for me too, because women in project management is something that many of us are, and we really enjoy it passionately.
Thank you, Mariana. And we do have Meghana, who is our mentor lead. Meghana, over to you to say hi to everyone.
Hello, good day everyone, and thanks a lot for joining us. And it is going to be an amazing session. Of all I know about Cecilia for sure, I think she'll be amazing, as well as Hillary. So hope you enjoy it. And alongside our connects, we also offer a unique platform where people, which includes everyone, just about, no distinctions, just about everyone has access to a very interesting network. And we also experiment with a lot of mentoring formats. So a few months back we had a meetup wherein we had a very interesting speed mentoring session, and we have always had a lot of requests for more. So some more in the making, and for sure we will let you know when the next session is happening. And with that, it is back to Priya or Cecilia.
Yeah, thank you, Meghana. Yes, and that was a very interesting speed mentoring session. We are planning for one soon, and we'll keep you updated. For now, some housekeeping rules. We are here to celebrate women leadership, and we are all speaking on our individual capacity. Our views do not express any way or represent any way the organization that we work for. This meeting has been recorded, as you might have already seen and guessed. So if you are uncomfortable in any way, please feel free to hop out. Else, you are welcome to join our celebration. And with this, I will move on to our community updates. And this is just a reminder what this community is all about. And that's our mission, vision, and values. We are a community with a purpose. And of course, we are not a business, of course, at all. We have around 800 women across the globe in our LinkedIn and Facebook groups that we have. Our vision is to empower with the right support, with the right skills, and we hope someday we will be able to transform the future. And we truly believe that being good enough is amazing. So it's about, you may not be an expert if you have to, help each other, or you have to power up each other. And that's why we say, even if you're good enough, that's really amazing. So being good enough is amazing. And when such good enough people come together, we simply power up. And together, of course, we rise. With this, I will hand over to it was Grace, but unfortunately she could not join in to talk about our last month's event. And as you are seeing on the screen, our last month's event was an Africa region event. And we talked about leading projects in a changing world with Corinne. And I will, if you have missed this event, I will share the link to the recording on the chat window soon after I stop sharing the screen. But that was a very, very amazing event as well. And this was the participation that we had in our last month's event. And if you still don't have time to go through the recording, this is all the key points from that event. And this has been beautifully recorded by Feni, who is also there on the event today. Feni, please say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Hi from the Basque Country. I'm really looking forward to today's presentations, as usual. I'm sure there will be a lot to learn from both Cecilia and Hilary. Thank you.
Thank you, Feni. And we're going to get started with our today's event. To introduce the speaker and the topic, I welcome Mariana to walk us through the topic and the speakers of the day.
Thank you, Priya. Our guest speaker of the day is none other than Cecilia Voji. And she is, I see, very experienced, has a lot of achievements. I will name some of them. She is Executive Director of Active PMO, Consulting and Training in Project Management and Leadership. She's Professor of International Universities and Business Schools, speaker at conferences in Latin and North America since 2008, more than 25 years leading software development projects, PMO's implementation, and PMO management. She is also executive MBA at University Francisco de Vitoria from Spain, project management professional PMP certified by PMI in 2003, leadership SDI facilitator certified by Personal Strengths Publishing, professional executive coach recognized by Association for Coaching London, PMI Leadership Institute Masterclass 2012, graduated, president of PMI Buenos Aires chapter in 2011, mentor of PMI Region 13 Southern Latin America during years 2014 to 2017. And I am at the end of the list. It is very long. Cecilia, congratulations. And she's going to talk to us about her research on women in project management. Cecilia.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Priya. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And I want to share with you some of my research, some of the information I researched and the results I had. But I want to begin this presentation with this quote. It's from Sheryl Sandberg. You know, Sheryl Sandberg was COO from Facebook, now Meta. And this quote says, "We cannot change what we are not aware of. And once we are aware, we cannot help but change." And I think that all we are doing here in our network, Women Power Up network, and what we are doing about our research and presentations is to make more people aware of this gap we have with women, and in project management especially, but in leadership roles too. So let's begin with some questions, and I would like you share your thoughts in the chat, please. Have you ever wondered why most project managers are men? Please share your thoughts in the chat. Do you have any idea why most of project managers are men? Gender bias, that they are better managers. Wow, Julieta, thank you. Any other thought? because women only got in the game a few years ago. Women rated by most. Whoa, Liz. Resilience to stress. Okay, second questions. Do you know what the participation of women in project management leadership is? Do you know what are the percentage? Which is the percentage of women? 40%, perhaps 30. Mariana is closer. Okay, thank you. Is project management a profession for women? What do you think? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. And now, what skills, traits does a project leader need to motivate the team and improve the performance of project? Last, empathy. Whoa, yes. Communication. Leadership, of course. Integrity. Wow, thank you. Yes. Let's talk about project management field. Project management field is growing up very, very rapidly. Organizations solve their problems and take advantage of the opportunities through projects more than ever. Projects have become driving force behind the work done, innovation, expansion, and PMI calls today the project economy. Project economy because most of the effort of the companies are driving through projects. And project economy requires talented project managers to lead and to motivate teams. Antonio Nieto Rodriguez, in his book, The Project Revolution, and also in his presentation, he talked about the project revolution. And this chart shows that the effort that companies are giving to projects right now is increasing a very, very highly speed. Organizations are shifting their focus more than ever to projects and project-based work. Projects are the new norm for creating value and for staying in business. So there is a really, really big opportunity in project shops, in project-related jobs. And there is a widening gap between the demand for the companies, for the employers, and the availability of qualified project managers. This is causing that companies are wasted 10% of their investment because of poor project performance. And companies cannot implement their strategic efforts because of the lack of PM talent. So this is a very big opportunity here, but women in project management are only 28% of the population, of all the project managers. Something that called my attention is that PMI does not have the statistic of how many women we are as members of PMI. If you create your account in PMI.org, you will not ask if you are male or female. So PMI do not know how many of the members are women or men. But we can take this information from the PMI salary survey. The last edition of the PMI salary survey, 2021, last year, report that only 28 of the respondents were women. We can use this information to think about the participation of women in this field. Some years ago, from Buenos Aires chapter, we made a research about the participation of women in chapters and in Latin America chapter. And what we found is that less than 30% of the members and 30% of the credential holders of the chapter members were women, and the 37% of the chapter board of directors, a little higher than the members, were women. So the participation of women in project management leadership is still so long. And also at the Buenos Aires chapter community of practice, the female leadership in project management, we made another research with companies and organizations from Latin America, asking them how many projects they are running at the time, and how many of those projects were being led by women. And this is the result. Only 18% of the projects of the companies in Latin America were led by women. So the participation of women in project management is really low. And especially in some industries like energy, oil and gas, and information technology, but it's really, really low. This is close related with STEM careers, because STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are the careers of most of the project managers. Most of the project managers comes from these STEM careers. And the participation of students in careers, STEM careers, are only 20 to 25% are women. So there's a close relationship with this, and this is affecting to the low participation of women. Talking about the workforce in these STEM jobs, the participation of women is low too. Women make up only 28% of the workforce in STEM jobs. This is really, really related to project management, because as I said, most of the project managers have a graduation in STEM careers. What are the key factors reinforcing these gender gaps in STEM? This begins in school. This begins in girls in the early age, because of the teachers. The teachers transmit these gender stereotypes, thinking that girls are not so good at math like boys, and that STEM careers are male-dominated cultures, and then girls do not have role models, and teachers think that math is not good for girls, and they transmit this math anxiety. So since the early years, girls are receiving these all prejudices about STEM careers. And I don't know if you want, this guy is Eduardo Brown, engineer Eduardo Brown. She wrote a book, People First Leadership, and she talked in some conferences in PMI, at PMI United States, and I also saw him in Latin America, LIM. And what he talked about leadership. He interviewed some well-known leaders from important companies like Jack Welch from General Electric, and Herb Kelleher from Southwest Airlines, and Richard Branson from Virgin Group, and they talk about caring of people as the main skill and the main trait leaders have to have. And Eduardo showed this slide in that presentation. I saw him first time in Lima in 2014. Not in Lima, I'm sorry, in Rio de Janeiro in 2014 in a Leadership Institute meeting from Latin America. And he showed this slide, and I was very surprised. The future of leadership is female. What was he saying? He was saying that all the traits leaders should develop are more related to women than to men. And that is why I selected the subject of my doctoral thesis. I began studying this subject because of this slide. I have to research leadership theory as part of my thesis. So I made the research since the first theory, leadership theories, the first of 1920, 1940, and so on. And the first theories talk about the grid leader theory, talk about leadership as a personality. And after that, the following theories talk about behavioral, relationship, humanistic, contingency, situational theory. But the strange part, or not so strange, but what caught my attention is that all these theories talk about men leaders. No one theory talks about women leaders. And that was noticed by Victoria Shane. She, in 1973, she wrote a paper called, titled Think Manager, Think Male. And what she's saying is that if all the theories and all the books on all management theories talk about men, not about women. Alice Eagley with Carrao, they wrote some other theories, social role theory and role congruence theory, saying that as leadership is associated with masculine traits, like aggressive, energetic, strong, dominant, assertive, individualistic, competitive, task-oriented, and self-confident, that are the traits associated with leadership and are male traits. So when a lady takes a role as a leader, and if she shows some of that leadership traits, of she shows herself assertive or competitive or self-confident, she's not saying feminine. But if she shows her feminine traits, sensitive, emotional, affective, she's not seen as a leader. So whatever she does, she won't be seen well. And talking about stereotypes, I want to show you this video. I'm not sure. Please tell me if you can hear the sound. Are you hearing?
No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can see it.
Let me see. Perhaps I will stop sharing. I share again. I'm sorry. Perhaps I haven't shared with sound. I share sound. I'm sorry. Now?
Yep.
As a girl, I'm expected to be your little princess. As a boy, I'm expected to be your hero. I'm supposed to play with dolls and look pretty. I'm supposed to play sports and act tough. Crying makes people think I'm hormonal. Crying makes people think I'm weak. If I spend more time at work than at home, I lack devotion. If I spend more time at home than at work, I lack devotion. People will question my sexuality if I choose to join the army. People will question my sexuality if I choose to be a nurse. I'm expected to define myself as a boy or as a girl.
Okay, and that is what girls are receiving, and boys, no? The stereotypes affect all to as well boys as girls. So we have to be aware of that and to take account these stereotypes and don't be affected by that. Going on with leadership theories, later theories talk about more female-related traits and characteristics and skills. But again, all the theories describe leadership related to men, not to women. Perhaps that's why only 24% of the executive levels were held by women in 2021. This study from Leanin and McKinsey Company is doing every year, and the results are mostly the same. Only 20 to 25% of the executive C-suite level are held by women. And if we talk about CEOs from the companies, the percentage is 6%. Really low percentage. We have there are some metaphors about what's the reason of this. I think you should know these metaphors or some of these metaphors. For example, glass roof explains the low participation of women in leadership position is due to we have a roof. You can see it because it's like a glass roof, but there is still a barrier to women to reach leadership position. There are another metaphor that says that it's almost impossible for women to advance in some industry like oil and gas, mining. They are really male-dominated companies. Do you know any of these metaphors? And do you have any experience with this metaphor? Another metaphor says that glass walls say that women are inserted and progressed and can take leadership positions, but in some areas of support and service and education or health, only some areas where are more women in leadership. Other metaphor is broken stairs. Broken stair is working women who interrupt their career to take care of children or parents. For example, when I have my daughter, I left my job for a year for each one of my two daughters, and that implies that you have to begin again, and you have some stairs, some steps less in your stair. And other metaphor talks about sticky floors, and this is related to women of low socioeconomic and educational levels, which has precarious employment and is really difficult for them to advance in the ladder of the leadership, almost impossible for them. And another known metaphor is glass cliff. It says that in critical situation, they offer projects to women with great possibility of failing. Or if they fail, of course, self-fulfilling prophecy. Some things or some thoughts are that women are better managing crises, but anyway, many times is because it is preferable that the women fail and not men. And another explain to what is happening in leadership is about the biases we have. You mentioned that in the chat, so we have really much biases. We all have biases at work. This is a few, but we have many biases at work. One biases is the performance biases, and we believe that the abilities of a man are far superior to those of women. And these biases, we all have these biases, or in more on less measure, but we all have biases. Another biases is the attribution biases. When women are successful, they attribute the success to the chance, luck, or other external factors. For example, her boss like her, or something like that. It's not because of her effort or for her capacity. It's for luck. Her success is for luck. The approval bias is related to the role congruence theory that says that women are not approved when they are assertive or self-confident, when they show attributes related to male attributes. So they are, and related to leadership, and they are not approved because they are not showing as ladies. Maternity bias, companies that do not want women who have or may have children because they think they won't be compromised, they will miss the days of work. Affinity bias talk about people feel better with similar people. And if you have all the C-level of the company with men, it obviously they will continue recruiting men. And this meta biases is believing that we don't have any bias. Believing that we don't have any bias is a bias too. So these are some of the biases we have, and it could be affecting women in leadership. And now I will talk about my research. This is my doctoral thesis, Impact of Female Leadership in Information Technology Project in Argentina. I made my research in my country. And my hypothesis was that women in leadership roles in an information technology project in Argentina motivate their teams, especially younger generations, with their female leadership style, bringing greater efficiency to the organizations. I made 2 phases. The first phase was qualitative phase, interviewing 18 women leaders. And after that, I made a quantitative phase, researching through a survey to the collaborators. And the first question was, what are the ideal skills and competencies for a leader to promote good results in IT industry projects? The collaborators who respond the survey, they didn't know that I was asking only people who had a women leader. One of the questions was, what is the gender of your leader, male, female? And after that, if they answered male, I said, okay, thank you very much, and I finished the research. But if they answer female, they have the later questions. And the first question was that ideal skills and competencies for a leader to promote good results. The results is that the ideal leader encourages teamwork, communicate purpose and objectives of the project, listen to what they have to say, and put him or herself in their place, generate bonds in the team, pays attention to professional development, gives independence and flexibility to work, and others. The second question was, what are the real skills and competencies of your real leader in your project? And it was amazing because the results were the same: encourage teamwork, communicate purpose, listen, generate bonds, facilitate. It's almost the same. So here is the comparison, what ideal versus real skills, or the real leader. So they show that the real leaders, women leaders, had the same attributes, competencies, skills that they consider the ideal for a leader in their project, IT industry projects in Argentina. This is the comparison, ideal and real, and they put in the first place these attributes. I will mention that they had more than 22 skills, and they had to prioritize and then prioritize this in the same in the same level, the ideal with the real skills. After that, we ask about transformational, transactional, and laissez-faire dimension of these are the dimensions of transformational leadership theory. And the results are that collaborators found that the female leaders have or show really high in the transformational leadership style. Charisma or idealized influence, intellectual stimulation, individual consideration. These are the transformational dimensions. A little less in transactional theory is transactional style. Contingency reward is from transactional style, and less than laissez-faire. So this is like the optimum. This theory says that a good leader shows in more proportional the transformational skills and a little bit of transactional. And the last question was about servant leadership. And again, the collaborators show that or assess their leader very high in leadership dimensions, in leadership style, in servant leadership style. Emphatic communication and persuasion, intuition and foresight, strategic thinking, and focus on people. Very high in all levels. And what is interesting is that millennial assess more in more level the empathic communication and the focus on people. They consider better the results for their leader, their female leader. So the results of this research show that my hypothesis was proved. Respondents say that their female leaders have the quality of an ideal leader to perform well on IT projects, encourage teamwork, communicate project goals and objectives, listen to what collaborators have to say and put herself in their place, generate bonds in the teams, space for communications and informal relationships. And collaborators rated their female leaders very high in the dimension of transformational and servant leadership. And youngest, the millennial, valued to a greater extent the aptitude of their female leaders. For my thesis, I had to validate my results with other studies, and I found that several studies say that women excel in leadership skills men. This study says that for centuries there have been a cultural prejudices against women in leadership. But in 2019, this study presents evidence that the bias is wrong and unwarranted because women percentile was superior in almost all the categories, the capabilities in leadership than men. Other study, the same company, Sanger-Folkamp study in 2020, during the pandemic, found that women score higher than men in most competencies during crisis. The competencies of women excels men, and they prove that women, or the state that women are better leaders in crisis. Employees reported that they're more engaged with women leaders than with men leaders. And as a plus, women-led companies are more likely to meet climate targets. It's known that women are more engaged with the sustainability, with the goal of global warming. And this study was done by Arabesque board member, Barbara. Oh, I'm sorry. And she says that so far, all the data reinforce the original premise that diversity and environmental performance are linked. So we are not talking about having only women in leadership. We are talking about having diverse teams. So emotional closeness and the ability to listen have been seen for a long time as a weakness. But now, in the face of the challenge we have in this 21st century, such as the climate emergency, inequality, and pandemic, these attributes become strengths. And now, are we talking about female leadership, or are we talking about new leadership for everyone? And I have to say that Eduardo Brown slides should change, and it's not the future of leadership if female, but it's the present of leadership if female. But for everyone, not only for women, all we have to develop these skills that are more taking care of people, communicating, empathy, and traits related to women in special, but that we all may or should develop. Thank you. I think we have some time for questions.
Hi, Mariana, do you see any questions on the chat? If you could moderate this. You're on mute, Mariana. You have to
Sorry.
unmute yourself.
Thank God I have camera on. So no questions in chat so far. So I engage you to write a question, or you can speak up also.
Okay, I'm reading the chat now. I haven't read while I was talking. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you, everyone.
I think, Cecilia, that everyone is impressed by your presentation, and actually I'm still thinking about everything that we saw, a lot of information, so maybe give us some time to think.
Thank you, and that's the purpose of the presentation. Make you think. Yes, be aware of the situation, and of course what we are looking for is a diverse team, diverse company, diverse project management. We enrich all together with the diversity.
Okay, if I can comment something so that we don't just continue. I noticed I had a situation where a company was searching for a project manager exclusively because I guess the reason was that they had clients that were like strong-minded, and somebody strong who should fight with them. And those who knew that project management is better done by women exclusively looked for women. So I saw the both situation in my life.
Thank you, Mariana. Yes, I think there are very, very different situations, but almost all are biases and prejudices that prefer men than women the most of the time.
There's a similar
Hello?
experience. Hello. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
There's a almost similar experience I had when I had my first calling, and I felt I wanted to get into management. And back then, the first question I was asked by my then reporting manager, whom I do not wish to quote here, but the response was, "Really? Do you want to do that?" And my answer was a plain, simple yes. I want to do this. I'm quite sorted.
Thank you, Meghana.
It is not only management, it's about the leadership roles as well, right? So
Generally, yes, yes.
Hello.
hello, yeah. Well,
Yeah, Trupti here from India. So first of all, I thank you, all of you, for organizing such an amazing platform for women, where we can understand each other and put each other into a place where we understand each other better and our business is better. So I had just one question, like as the creative head at a company. So what I wanted to know was like for Cecilia, like since she gave such an amazing presentation and really impressed by each and everything that she said. So thank you, Cecilia, for having this platform and letting us be a part of it. But my question
Thank you.
was, so how difficult was it to put try to put ourselves like yourself in a position of power and try to take the ownership of it? Like we as women, we are always seen as the empath at an organization. So how difficult, or how to do that, to put ourselves in the position of power and try to explain our words to everyone?
I think that making people aware of the biases we have and being aware of the capacities we have. I show some studies that say that women excel men, but what I want to say is we are all the same. We all can develop the same skills. If we want, we can make a good job in every position. That's what I want to say. And sometimes we are our worst enemy, we ourselves, because sometimes we have the idea, I'm not prepared for that, I'm not capable to take this responsibility. So we have to talk to ourselves and convince ourselves that we are capable. We can develop our weaknesses. We can develop our skills, and it's not only the exterior, but it's also our interior mind, our interior thoughts. What are playing a bad role in ourselves.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot.
yeah, so I think, Cecilia, I'll share my screen, and Mariana, you can hand over this token of appreciation to Cecilia.
Cecilia, thank you so much. It was a really great session, and please accept this token of appreciation from Women Power Up Network. I think I will see this recording again to watch all the statistic and very interesting research you have done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mariana. Thank you for this space. I am glad to share my research, because the aim of this research is to make people aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And now let's move on to the next section of the event. Ms. Hilary Kinney, who is going to tell us how to use professional project management principles to reduce stress and streamline life outside of work. Hilary, can you say hi?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
Hi.
everyone. It's so nice
Hi.
to be with you. I'm
Oh.
joining you from the US today.
Yeah. So let me introduce you, Hilary. Hilary Kinney works with companies to achieve their visions through strategic communications and project management. She is also an award-winning blogger and author of a famous book called Project Management for Parents. I think you all seen it before. It was published by Morgan James, and Hilary has 17 years of experience successfully advancing business priorities and deploying major projects for large corporations. With a broad depth of operational and above property experience in the luxury hospitality tier, she provides seasoned insights and actionable strengths for companies to successfully realize their goals. Her achievements range from facilitating a C-suite sponsored customer recognition program across 7,000 properties globally to directing special projects from the president's office at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company. She lives in the Washington, D.C. area, where she enjoys outdoor activities with her family.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And I'm so happy to be here. It's really an amazing combination of presentations. And I was so excited when we decided to do this because as women and just people in general, there are challenges that we face at work and at home. And as women, what we learned from Cecilia's presentation is there are biases that impact our work. And unfortunately, they also impact us at home. So, but the beauty of project management and what you are already skilled in is that we can apply those principles at home to help us. And the thing that I loved seeing in the Women Power Up October newsletter was this quote by Disha, who perfectly captured what I wanted to talk about today. She says, women have to stop trapping themselves into believing that they have to be super mom, wife, or daughter at the cost of self-burnout. They need to prioritize themselves and their happiness, because if they are happy, they can keep others around them happy and let them all be responsible and accountable. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how we can prioritize what makes sense for us in our personal lives and how we can, hold others around us accountable and talk about what needs to be done so that we can all take care of ourselves and have a better quality of life. So that's my goal for today. And how we're going to do that, there we go. So our learning objectives is, the first one is we're going to learn how to prioritize your schedule and focus on your priorities using the principle of constraints. And then number two, we're going to talk about how to build teamwork and maximize productivity at home so that you're not doing it all yourself. And that ties into some of those biases that we heard from Cecilia, that women, we have those softer skills that we apply at home that don't apply at work. So that sort of leads to us doing more work at home. So we're going to talk about how we can share that workload more fairly so that we have more time to focus on our work, our careers and our chosen disciplines that we want to focus on. So I think it's a fascinating body of work that actually I came to during quarantine, during the pandemic. And I started seeing how parents were struggling with online school when we're all under lockdown and trying to work at home. And there was so much going on. It was really difficult to manage. And we know as project managers that often that's the way our projects are, right? We don't have enough people, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough time to get our projects done. So I started parallel tracking the work, the concepts at work, and started thinking through how they apply at home. And that's the result of this book that Mariana was referring to, and how we can apply project management at home and in our personal lives. And for those of you without kids, it also applies to just in general, how you can prioritize and organize work. So, I love project management. I've been doing it for a long time. I love the theories. I love pulling teams together and rolling out these amazing projects, and you can take a lot of pride in it afterwards. So I think it's pretty neat to think about where else it can apply. So the way I like to think about project management is that it's people plus processes. Because I think often we think about it just as the tasks around project management and how we get the work done, but especially at home and outside of work, we're really more focused on people and relationships. So as I run through this, I'll be talking through how we connect those two together and how we really need to focus on both to have a successful outcome. So to get started, let me just check the chat. Are there any questions in chat? Okay. And then I'd be curious if people could just put in the chat if your parents, how old your kids are, just so I can get an idea of where you are and what I can think through. So what examples might be interesting. So what we're going to talk about first is how to focus on our priorities. And as you know, we all can feel overwhelmed pretty easily and feel like we have a lot going on. So I'm relating this to a stop sign to think about how can we stop and think through what our priorities are and really focus on what's most important to us at that time. And just keep in mind that everyone's going to look a little different and that it's not the same for everyone. So you can just start thinking through as I go through this presentation, what makes sense for me and for my family. So since we have a project management audience, you're probably familiar with the triple constraints, which is one of my favorite theories in project management. And it's all about how we're limited by time, cost, and scope, which is the amount of work of any project. And at work, we manage these very closely. We can't go over budget. We can't extend the timeline, very far, and we have to get a certain amount of work done. So at work, we're constrained by these. These are limits. And what I find interesting is that in our personal lives, we often sort of ignore the limits and think, that whole supermom, superwoman theory, which I think we all need to get rid of. I don't think it's helpful to us because it makes us think that we have unlimited time, unlimited energy, and then there are costs if we overrun those. We get tired, we get sick, our relationships suffer because there's just too much going on. So I'd like us to think about what our limits are personally and how that helps us develop our priorities in a way that makes sense for our families and for us personally. So what I've done is I've expanded on the triple constraints inspired by Harold Kersner, who's one of my favorite project management authors, and what constraints impact us in our personal lives and in our families. So you can see you've got the traditional ones of time and cost, which is now budget. And what I've done here is I've expanded out the work that we have. So we have the parents' working career as their work or their scope, and children's education is their work or their scope. That's sort of their job when they're a little kid. And then there's this whole other bucket of work called family related work, which is everything that takes to manage the household. There's the housework, the grocery shopping, driving the kids to school, et cetera. So that's all the family related work that needs to happen. And then we have extracurricular activities and hobbies, which is all the things that we do outside of work in terms of, volunteering or kids sports activities. And then the other two things that I think are really important to think about are quality of life and health and safety. So quality of life is family time, vacation time, reading, what sort of things do you like to do to recharge? Health and safety is what do you do to take care of yourself personally? Is it exercising? Is it meditation, et cetera? Or are there any health concerns in your family that you need to manage? So these are the overall constraints, and everyone's a little different. So for example, in my family, I have a 10-year-old son My husband and I have an aging mother, and some of our constraints is, caring for my mother, caring for my son. And then for health and safety, my son and I have a lot of food allergies, so I have to do a lot of food prep at home. So those impact our overall family plan and how our schedule looks and what we need to prioritize. So let's talk about what happens when we overdo it, right? I like to think about it compared to a water balloon. So if we keep adding things, if we keep adding activities, if we keep adding work, if we keep adding other things, eventually what's going to happen, right? Our balloon is going to burst. So that's why I think it's so important to be cognizant, especially as of women, and all the news about people getting burned out right now is we need to be thoughtful about how we're spending our time and our energy so we don't reach this point of bursting our balloon. And in order to do that, what I like to do is think about what your family plan looks like in the middle of that stop sign. So that stop sign is what we're limited by, and how are you going to fit your family inside that, in your career, to make everything happen in a way that's healthy and works for you. And then there's white space around that overall plan, and that's sort of a buffer to give you a little extra time, a little extra flexibility should something happen. And that buffer is really helpful, so we're not, allocating every single second to getting something done, and we have a little space in there and a little flexibility. So it's important to think about as you build out your individual plan, do you want the circle up against that stop sign? So, if one thing changes, it's harder to navigate, or do you want it a little smaller so that you have a little more flexibility when things change? So any questions so far on these? Just throw them in the chat. And then when you start thinking about how can you adjust things? If you're feeling overwhelmed right now, you're probably wondering, okay, well, this is useful, but what can I do about it? So what I encourage people to think about is which ones are more flexible of these items and which ones are more inflexible. So what usually happens is these two at the bottom, quality of life and health and safety, those are usually first to go, right? So when I get busy at work, I'll spend more time at the office. I'll spend, less time working out, less time with my family, and probably eating less healthy because I'm getting a lot of takeout, right? So those are the first things that usually go when we're busy. And that's fine. But what I encourage people to do is just realize that you're making a conscious choice to do that and make that choice conscious. So when things come up, you need to be aware that, okay, so for a short term, I can, stay late at the office, but I can only do this so long before other things start to suffer, like my relationships at home. So just be thoughtful of how you're making these choices when your schedule changes. The things that are more inflexible or harder to change are budget, which is your family income, and your time. So those are harder to adjust. And then these things in the middle, these parents' work and career, children's education, family-related work, extracurricular activities, and hobbies, we can play with those and move them around to shrink that circle if you need to. So here's a way to start thinking it through. So I call it the seesaw. So when things are too much, you can either decrease the work or you can add resources to help. So in terms of workload, that family-related work in the middle, how can you reduce that workload? Or how can you add resources? Are your kids old enough that they can help more with chores around the house? Do you want to, have a relative come in and help you with childcare? So that's adding resources to help. Do you want to, hire a service to help you with cleaning services or use grocery delivery to reduce that workload on you? So how can you adjust things to make differences? For extracurricular activities and hobbies, do you want to do less of those? Maybe agree to not doing so many volunteering outside the home if that's impacting your schedule so much. So you can think about how you want to move those around to start getting that seesaw in a way that works for you. So once you've thought about that, and I encourage you to talk this through with your partner and your family to see what makes sense and sort of, do a spot check. How are you feeling about our schedule? Is it too much? Is it too little? Do you want to do more? Do you want to do less? Are we spending enough time together? And sort of get everyone's feedback and talk it through, like what makes sense. We're pretty conservative in how many activities we do with my son. Usually has one extracurricular activity going at a time. So we try to limit what we have going on, so we have enough time to spend with each other and just day to day. So when you have time to talk about it, this is what I call, for those project managers among us, an in and out of scope plan, right? So when we're working on a project, we clearly state, what are we going to work on and what are we not going to do? What does this project not include? So that our sponsors are very clear and don't come back to us and be like, well, how come you didn't do that? And we can say, well, that was out of scope for this project. So what I encourage people to do is actually write it down. You talk about it as a family and commit to what you want to do to make it make sense. So you don't get pulled in one direction later and then forget that, oh no, I agreed not to volunteer, more than, once a month when someone asks, and it can remind you so that you can stick to this plan. So here's an example. So 1 activity per week for parents and kids is what you want to do. You want to have family dinner together 3 times a week. You're going to add house cleaning and grocery delivery services, and you want to take 2 family vacations a year. So what's out of your family plan? I'm not going to do more than 1 activity per child a week, and we're not going to volunteer too much. And that volunteering, it could be outside of work. It can also be related to your work, right? Like, what if someone reaches out for a board position or, to chair an organization? Just be thoughtful. It may seem like an amazing opportunity and great for your career, but what cost is that coming at, right? So last year I signed up to be a board member in a local community organization, and it seemed like a great fit for my project management skills, and I'd be contributing, but it was just too much. And it was just too much for me and for the family. So this year I decided not to do that. So change and flux, depending on what's going on in your family, and what works for you. And just remember that everyone's plan is going to look a little bit different. So here are some top tips for focusing on your priorities. Recognize those individual constraints impacting your family. Make desired changes by adding resources or deprioritizing workload or your environment, but not too much. Just remember, be careful with that quality of life and that health and safety. And identify items that are in and out of your family plan, that in and out of scope document. And I recommend that you put it on your fridge or somewhere in your office so that you remember. And I had one woman tell me that, she got a call from school asking her to volunteer, and she said, oh, no, thought to herself, I remember I decided not to do that. And then she could politely decline. So it's a good way to hold yourself accountable. So any questions on priorities before I move to the next section? All right, you can post those in the chat if something comes to mind. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to get organized and streamline life at home. So as we know, there's a lot going on at home, and we can use the amazing power of project management to make it easier and build that teamwork at home, just like we would like a project team at work, right? We've got a group of people, we've got to get work done, and how are we going to do it together? So let's talk about that next. So let's talk about tasks to start off with. So the 4 parts of a task. So you project managers, you'll recognize IPEC: initiation, planning, execution, and closeout. So in terms of task management, we often think just about the execution of getting things done, especially at home. Like, oh, I need to go to the grocery store. Okay, let's go to the grocery store. But there's 4 other things that need to happen. We need to think about, I need to go to the grocery store. We need to plan it. I need to make that list. I need to go to the grocery store, and then I need to come home, put things away, see what the grocery store didn't have, figure out what else I need to add to next week's list, or go to a different store. So there are actually 4 parts of a task. And I just saw a question from Nima about how would you handle guilt after rejecting volunteering? So that's a good question. So when people ask, I think it's important that you feel like you don't have to explain yourself. You can just say no, thank you, and that's fine. Because when you start explaining it, they'll try to get you to do it anyway. And I think you just need to go back to those priorities, and you're saying, I'm not, necessarily turning something down. I'm saying yes to something else. I'm saying yes to more time with my family, or I'm saying yes to, more time at the gym, which are good things. So I would sort of try to think about it, what you're getting instead of what you're turning down. And then, you can just say this is, I'm sorry, I have other priorities right now, similar to what we do at work. And that's really helpful for me. So in going back to the 4 parts of a task, at work, we do all this planning as project managers. We're organizing our project plan. We're figuring out the schedule, who's going to do it when, what's happening. And at home, the same thing needs to happen, right? We have to think about, okay, who has sports on this day? What meal am I making? When does the laundry need to get done? And a lot of that is often in our heads. And as women, we often take care of that ourselves. So what I want to talk about is how you can involve the family in all that natural project management planning that we do all the time anyway, and how we can apply that to work. So here on the next slide, I want to talk about, that role of the project manager. You may have heard about, they talk about in sort of layman's terms as the mental load. And that's how people outside of the project management profession refer to it. It's all that mental tracking that we do. I've heard it referred to as like the ticker tape on the news, like, everything that's happening in the family and when things need to happen. So identifying that work, determining the schedule, assigning the work, monitoring and adjusting it. That's all things that we do at work every day. And it's also everything that needs to happen at home too. So how do we get the family involved, and how do we sort of share that mental load with the family members? So what I recommend doing is involving family members in determining who does what when. And I'm a strong proponent of communication. I think projects at work live and die in communication. I think projects at home and just that work that we do are so important. That communication, that we talk about it and get people involved and get their buy-in. So I think it all starts with a conversation at home and start thinking through, okay, what is everything that's happening? And how are we going to share this workload? And how am I going to get everything out of my head so that the other family members can participate too? So you can probably see all these sticky notes here. And that's a lot of the stuff, that we're doing to try to keep track of what's happening at work. I'm sorry, what's happening at home, all the work at home that we're trying to keep track of. So what I recommend, and what we call this in project management, it's resource capacity planning, like who's got capacity to do the work and who's going to do it. So at home, I recommend making this a little fun. If you've got younger children or older children, you can make it a game. Like, okay, let's take a bunch of sticky notes and write down what you think needs to happen around the house. And whoever comes up with the most sticky notes wins a prize. And you can count up, they wrote down water the plants, walk the dog, feed the dog, make dinner, do the dishes. Those are all things that need to happen. And then if you do that as a family, a lot of this is just bringing visibility to all this work that we as women are doing to the rest of the family so that everyone's aware. And there may be work that other family members are doing that we're not aware of that will come to light, that we all realize and we can appreciate within our families, everything that's going on. So the first step is identifying that work as a family and just being aware of what needs to happen. So that's the first step. The second step is check availability. And that means in terms of on your family, think through and talk through who's available to help. And depending on your age of your children, it also depends on what's their capacity. Are they old enough to help with chores around the house or not? So I have a 10-year-old and he's more able to help around the house, which is great. And then also in terms of check availability, if you want to go full project management on this, you can write out a schedule. There's a little template in my book where you can track what your weekly schedule looks like and just see when people have availability. For example, if one of your family members has a longer commute, that's going to impact their ability to do things around the house. So you can think about, and also depending on the day of the week, if your children have sports on Wednesday evenings, it's going to be harder for them or you to get things done because you'll be at sports practice. So thinking through when does it make sense to get this work done. And then step 3, decide who does what. So what I think is most useful is first ask, well, what do you want to do? Or, what do you enjoy doing? I enjoy cooking and gardening. Those are my favorite things to do. I do not like house cleaning, so I gravitate towards those. So, my husband does not cook. He's not good at it and he doesn't like to do it. So he takes care of the dishes. So you can start, I first recommend splitting things up by personal preference. And then you can do that based on capacity after that. And then in terms of step 4, it's managing the work, keeping that work organized, that we'll get more into next, and how you keep that work visible and just keep track of what needs to happen when. And then in step 5, assign the project manager, decide who's going to handle the different pieces of work. You don't need one project manager to do everything for your whole house. I recommend dividing it up. Like I handle the grocery shopping from start to finish. So I handle initiation, planning, execution, and control for all the grocery shopping. My husband handles, everything for the laundry. So I don't have to think about it. He just handles that entire piece. So that's what I recommend at home, is you each sort of own individual components of the work that needs to get done. So that reduces the mental load on whoever doesn't have to do it. So I don't have to think of everything. I just have to sort of think of my different pieces that I need to do. So I'm just reading another comment. The problem is no resource to support women prioritize family over career and hence less leadership percentage. What is more required is when there is no resource to support how we react in our next step or big action plan. What about having a family with unwilling members to help or to do, you'll have to redo? All right, good questions. So in terms of resources, so another way to think about it is you can bring in outside resources. So if you're single and you're not married, do you want to bring in services to help you, like with house cleaning or other things? Can you bring in other things to help you reduce that? And then in terms of cooperation, actually my book starts with a whole section on teamwork. And to build that cooperation and teamwork and that whole idea around change management that we use at work, is I recommend first involving everyone in the work and involving them in the discussion, so that they have buy-in to it, and using their ideas while you're creating this plan, so that they feel ownership over it. It's not just you dictating to them, you're all in it together. And then I also really recommend team building, just like we do at work. Do activities together, get to know each other better, go hiking, go to a park, do things together so you can sort of form those bonds. Because team building is basically like at work when we go and play mini golf or something. We're basically accomplishing something together, getting to know each other better, our personal styles, and it makes getting work done easier. So I recommend thinking about what are activities you can do as a family to start foster that communication and teamwork, so you can learn how to work well together. And then for Nima's question about work that you'll have to redo, so that goes back to the quality of the work, sort of that the quality level on the constraints that we were talking about. And honestly, a lot of our kids, as they're learning how to do things, and we may sort of have to decrease our expectations of how well they're going to have to do it, because they're going to have to, it's a learning process for them. And we may need to let go of some of that control of how they get that work done. So, my son's learning how to fold his laundry, and it's not the way I would fold his laundry, but he's learning, and it's a process. So I think we need to sort of let go a little bit if we're used to doing it ourselves, and let them do it and try it and learn. And it may not be exactly how we want it to get done, but in the broader scope of things, of them learning and growing and us having less on our plate, I think it's helpful for us to still let them take over that task. So now that we've talked about, okay, we sort of have an idea of everything that's going on, how are you going to organize it? And I think the most important thing is just keeping it visible so that people can see it, so people know what's going on. So these are things that the first two on the left are ones that we've used at our house. So it's a whiteboard, and I just write on it, what my son needs to do that day. And he can check it off or delete it when he's done. In one box, I've got how much screen time he has. And then on the bottom, I just kept track of a long-term project that we need to do over several days. So I have one child, so it was easier to do this, just for him. And then I've also used this weekly chore chart, so I don't have to write it out every day. So the one in the middle, it's got, you know, the day of the week, the chore, and I used visual pictures, little icons, just, you know, for my computer. So he could see it because, you know, he was young. It's easier for him to see, oh, that's a trash can. I have to take out the trash. And then the result, did he do it or did he not do it? And we also added a column for number of times asked because we're trying to get him to do things the first time, which, you know, can be a challenge. And then it has room for adding things you wanted to write in. So we tied this to his allowance. So you can see on the bottom, you know, out of $5, he earned $3 this week. So now he's gotten to the point where he'll come home, he'll look at his list. Oh, what do I have to do today? And he sort of knows what needs to happen. And it's really interesting. It helps with those executive function planning skills that we're trying to build in our kids that are so important to success in their careers. And he can sort of, you know, he talks through planning out, you know, how he's going to, you know, spend his time and when is he going to do some things. And sometimes he's like, okay, I'm going to do, you know, 30 minutes of screen time. Then I'm going to do my homework. Then I'm going to have another 30 minutes of screen time. And then I'm going to do my chores. So you can start seeing them start building that planning muscle, which is so important long-term. And then for those of you that have more kids or maybe more going on, here is a Kanban board just for sort of like the everyday person. Kanban is, you know, the bulletin board that shows work in progress. So you've got to do work, doing work, and done work. So it's a visual representation of what's going on. And those are Post-it notes. Green is for homework, blue is for chores, and they can sort of track what's happening and move things down from the bottom parking lot to what's going on. And then this one has a help column. So if they're working on something and they need your help or they need help from an older sibling, they can just stick it in the help column and say, I need help for you know, this assignment, and you can work on that later. So let's see. Just looking at the comments, looks like fun. Love this. Good learning. Done this in my professional work, right? So yeah, so we do this in our professional work, and how can we transfer this to our personal life just to make it really easy? And then for me, like, I want to add my work to this because it's easier for me to remember, oh, I need to do, you know, I need to go to the grocery store on Thursday, and it helps if I just get the laundry done on Tuesday. So just holding myself accountable and remembering what's the best day of the week to get things done. You can do this for the whole family too. And also it's good for your kids to see. And yep, the importance of executive functioning skills are so important in our kids. So yeah, that totally is important. So the next thing I want to talk about is, you know, once you get this organization system in place, you know, for those of you with an agile background, we're always iterating and changing and trying to make things better in those processes, you know, making sure they're working well for the team. So what I recommend is have family check-in meetings. And again, it continues that conversation and that communication and sort of builds that teamwork and also those problem-solving skills when you talk through, okay, what's working well? And you can also just do this with your partner. What's working well? What's not working well? You know, what do we need to change? What do you need help with? And what's our plan for next week? So this is especially important as you're going through periods of major transition, like, you know, back to school is a huge transition and there's a lot of schedule changes. So, you know, just checking in with your partner, you know, my husband and I would just talk over dinner, like, hey, how's it going? How's the, you know, the school pickup and drop off going? Do we want to change it? You know, is there anything we need to tweak? And again, this is a great way to build those executive function skills in your kids, is involve them in the conversation and, you know, and say, you know, how's it going? Is it going well? Or do you have an idea of how we want to change that? So recently my son broke his thumb playing basketball, which was, you know, really difficult, and, you know, you could no longer play flag football. And so we had, you know, several conversations like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Or how are we going to, you know, help you through this? You know, we talked about, well, what other extracurricular activities do you want to do? And so we visited like a music school because, you know, I was thinking he could do voice lessons since he can use his hands. We visited an art program, and he said, you know, I really don't want to do the music school. And if I hadn't involved him in that conversation, I probably would have just signed him up, and then he wouldn't have wanted to go. So it's really important to involve your family in the conversation and get their buy-in, so that they're willing to participate in the long run. So I love the Ina's comment. I love retrospectives. Exactly. It's a retrospective and just talk it through with your family. And again, for that buy-in that someone was talking about and getting people to be involved, it really helps with that. Because if it's their idea, they're more apt to do it, right? And then it really gives them that ownership to participate. And it's really fun to see their little brains working as they work through it. So top tips to streamline life at home, talk about the role of the project manager at home with your partner and who's going to do what piece. And again, I recommend that people sort of break it up. It's just not one project manager for everything, unless that makes sense for your family. But just think through what pieces make sense. Like, does one person want to handle car maintenance, and one person handle doctor's appointments, and one person handle scheduling kids' activities? That's a nice way to break it up, and that person just handles it from start to finish. Then the other person doesn't have to think about it, and it reduces that mental load. And then, like we've talked about, involve family members in determining the work, and with those ongoing check-in meetings, continue that communication and that conversation that'll really yield that teamwork and that buy-in that we're looking for. And then keep it simple. Use an organization system that works for everyone, and it's got to work for us too, right? Like, we're the ones who have to use this organization system. So I don't recommend doing if you want to use an online professional project management system, that's fine, but just be mindful of the amount of time it takes. And I always say, at work and at home, project management should make you faster, not be so much process that it slows you down. So the goal is to make your life easier in the long run and give you more time back, and not overcomplicate it with a lot of systems and process. So what's next? If you want to bring these ideas to life, just a few quick tips in summary is, going back to those priorities, write down what's in and out of your realistic family schedule. Like, think about, okay, for what priorities I want to set for my family, what's realistic for us, what am I taking out of my schedule, and what am I adding in, and what are we committing to? Like, as a family, what are we committing to improve the quality of life, and just have a sort of a plan that makes sense for us. And then involve the planning and the discussion and the planning around family related work to really get them involved, and have that buy-in of the program. So if you want more resources, there's more ideas in my book. There's tools, templates, and exercises that you can start going through these at home. It's at all major online retailers: Amazon, India, Germany, UK, and the US, because I know a lot of us are around the globe. Indigo in Canada, and Rakuten as well. I also have a monthly newsletter that you're welcome to sign up for at my website, projectmanagementforparents.com. I also can offer you a 33% book discount code. I'll put that in the chat if you want to use PMI discount. It does ship from a fulfillment center in Tennessee, so it may not make sense for those of you that are calling in from around the world, but you can order it on Amazon or other major retailers, or just get the ebook. So thank you so much. You're welcome to connect with me on social channels. This is all around project management for parents on Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and then LinkedIn. Please connect with me professionally. I love to be connected with fellow project managers and share the fun work that we're doing, and just continue. I love this platform of women coming together and supporting each other. I think it's so important, and just people in general, and how we can improve the quality of our lives, right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mariana, are you there?
I am here, Priya, and I think we should continue with questions, and let me start first. So you explained a lot of theories and practical tools to manage the family life, let's say, with work. And I was thinking, how did you get the idea to write this book? So was it from some personal situation that you had to deal with?
Well, it all started May of 2020 when the pandemic started. And I just started hearing, we were working from home. My son was doing online school. There were no activities, so everything was happening at home. And I started hearing that other parents were struggling with the same thing. And I just sort of had this idea in my head. I was like, this reminds me of work, that same feeling of, oh my goodness, I have so much to do. I don't know how I'm going to roll this project out. The executives want this out tomorrow and it's totally unrealistic, So I just started thinking about it, and I posted a LinkedIn article. It's still up. I called it Project Management for Parents. And it just kind of, I was like, I wonder if this, could be a book, or there's more here. So I was attending International Institute for Learning conference, and Judy Umlas was speaking. And, she's an author, and it was about, just go for it. Just, try new things. And I was like, well, let me just reach out to her. So I reached out to her. And again, it's about women empowering women, like supporting each other. And she was very nice. And she took my call and she said, well, why don't you just try writing, your introduction, your table of contents, and your first chapter, and see how it goes. And she was just super supportive. And I'm sure this network is the same. We can just be super supportive and encourage each other, right? And I wasn't sure, because I'd never planned on writing a book. So I was like, okay, well, let me try it. So I tried it and I was like, oh, I really enjoy writing, and I think I have enough content for a book. And then Judy was like, oh, and by the way, do you want to present this at International Project Management Day? And I was kind of like, at that point, I was like, well, sure, why not? Like, I'd never been a big public presenter, but I was like, sure, I'll try it. What can it hurt? So I ended up presenting at International Project Management Day. And then that turned into a book deal. And then it came out in February. So it's been really interesting. It's just been sort of this, snowball effect. And it's just fascinating to see how it really resonates with people. And it's been really fun to sort of go on this journey that I hadn't planned, just with really supportive people like your group and other groups are willing to have me on. And it's just fun to hear from people that it's helping, right? Because that's the original idea.
Wow, amazing, really nice journey or story. I think you had a lot of great time doing it, so it was worth a while. Maybe does anybody else have some questions from Hillary? Don't be shy.
I'm just looking through the chat to see if I missed any. I'm just reading Ravathi's comment about women prioritizing family over career, and how, going back to that stop sign, we can change our priorities, we can, emphasize career at certain points. We can, things can change, right? It's not like that stop sign and that plan is going to be the same all the time. Before, I became a parent, career was my big focus, and, I spent an extraordinary amount of time of that, and I really enjoyed it. And then, with my son, obviously my schedule changed. So, now my focus looks a little different. So I think the beauty of it is that we're constantly changing and growing. And I think to Cecilia's presentation, it would be nice if the work environment could support us as we go through these different things and as life changes, because it's not just for women, it's for men too. They're parents, they're caregivers. And just, I think I've seen a lot of conversations about the need for work to support people more as the whole person. And out of the pandemic, we're realizing the importance of life outside of work. And I think work is finally coming to the realization, and people are quitting because they're not getting the support that they need. So I'm hoping out of all of this that we've been through, that there'll be some positive changes just to support us all more as whole people, regardless of gender, so that we can, bring our best selves to work and to home, and have a good quality of life.
Thank you. So we have a question from Ina. I will read it. What was the beginning of implementing project management in your family? Any roadblocks, lessons learned?
Yeah, sure. So I'm trying to think, because I've been a project manager for a long time, and they say once a project manager, always a project manager. So I'm thinking back, probably, I think the biggest lesson learned are with like my siblings, with like planning family vacations, and my mom's caregiving. So it's interesting. Planning family vacations, I think, is one of the more difficult projects to do in your personal life because everyone has an opinion, they have different budgets. So in those situations, I'm thinking what my challenge with my family was coming across too much as like the taskmaster. And they sort of like saw me as that sometimes. So I needed to sort of like soften my approach because I would kind of go into work mode. So softening the approach, getting their input, and you know, getting them involved early to get everyone's ideas, I think is important. And then, you know, with my mom's care, you know, we had to move her to an assisted living facility, and they really appreciated me keeping track of everything. You know, I would just I keep track of things on an Excel spreadsheet, and we had a Google shared doc that we would access for the different people that needed to do different things. So I think balancing that relationship with what works, I think, is important, and what works for them, because you want to maintain, you know, getting the work done and maintaining and making it a little more fun, say, than you would at work, and not overusing the processes that you may use at work to get the things that you need to get done in your personal lives done.
True. Any more questions, please? You don't have this kind of opportunity every day to speak with Hillary. Oh, Priya is already saying thank you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
Right. Okay. So let me conclude this with a quote from Lee Lambert. You already saw it. It was under the event. He said, "I was fortunate to get to read Hillary's book before it was published, and I couldn't wait to hear what people had to say. It was worth the wait, and without exception, the comments were glowing. This will be worth your time on Saturday. I know I will be there." Okay, I agree with Lee. It was really worth a while. And Hillary, please accept this token of appreciation. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for sharing everything. And I hope that others will be engaged to read your book also.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, now let's move on to next section of the event. We are introducing the event that will be in next month on 19th of November. And we will be talking about sustainability. So enable leadership for sustainability. This will be a collaborative event with IAPM. Don't miss this chance. Please register soon, and see you next month.
Sorry, Mariana?
Yes?
Hi. Should I share?
Oh, we forgot, Fanny.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So sorry.
That's all
No, this is important time of the event. So please,
Okay.
Fanny, share us the
Sure.
Yes, I
drawing.
love Fanny's work.
Yes.
So yeah, bear with me. I'm trying to share now. Okay, here we go. Yes. All right. It's a bit slow, but it's coming. There it is. Okay, so this is my contribution today. As usual, I am blown away by the speakers and their presentations. There's always a lot to reflect upon and to learn from each of you. And so I hope we will all, be able to make some change wherever we are and to support each other as usual. So thank you for your time, for your experiences, Cecilia and Hillary. I have learned a lot. Life skills, I would say.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's great. Thank you, Fanny.
No, that's all right. My
That's
pleasure.
amazing that you did it so quickly.
Wow,
Yeah.
incredible.
We share this.
Awesome.
We share this with you.
Awesome.
So don't worry, you will have. Okay, so I'll stop sharing now. There we go. Okay, that's all from me. So back to
Thank
you,
you,
Mariana.
Fanny.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Fanny.
thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Awesome. Then I think it's time to wrap up now. And everyone, thank you for joining in. And do register for our next month's event. As Mariana said, this is a collaborative event with IAPM. Again, it will be on a very, very interesting topic that is on sustainability. Don't forget to join that as well. And with this, Cecilia, thank you very much for this wonderful session. Hilary, awesome as always. We are definitely going to power up our homes with project management skills now. And Mariana, great moderation. Fanny, as always, you're awesome. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll connect again next month. Bye-bye. See you.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take a
Bye.
picture. Take a
Bye,
picture.
everyone. Oh, a picture.
Bye,
Yeah.
thank you.
Take a picture.
Was
Bye.
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you from Ukraine.
Wow.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you from Tanzania.
See you next month.